Hey everybody, Roxabox90 here, back with Day 2 official Commander 2015 spoilers. We got a bunch of great stuff today. Let's start off with Ezuri Claw of Progress. Yep, your favorite elf tiny leader aggro commander card is unfortunately Phyrexianized. I guess they got him after all on Mirrodin. 4 for a 3/3 elf warrior. Whenever a creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you get an experience counter. At the beginning of combat of your turn, put X1 counters on another target creature you control or X the number of experience counters you have. Realize how ridiculous this guy is when you think about this. Any creature with power 2 or less. Who has that? Lots of elves and all tokens ever. If you have any kind of token generation, you just start ramping up your experience counters and getting huge bonuses. Yeah, he's kind of weak in and of himself and he can't pump himself, but seems absolutely obnoxious with things, any kind of Simic styled 1+1 counters, token creation, so many ways to abuse him. Awesome card. Viper of something, Viper's Brood is 5 for a 3/3 Myriad, and whenever it deals combat damage, you may draw cards. This is one of the cycle we saw from yesterday with the Banshees, and this is the Snake version. Not very different, to be honest. It's unlikely that it'll be doing damage given how expensive it is to play, but it's a fun uncommon. Vine Censure is 4 for 1/1 with Trample. Whenever it enters the battlefield, it has 1+1 for each land in all graveyards. This connects with the guy we had yesterday who deals with sacrificing permanents. And whenever a land is put into the graveyard from anywhere, any graveyard, you can pay 2 green and put it back in your hand. So we see one of these very powerful, easily abusable creatures that are very cheap. 4 for a 15/15 trample or whatever. That fits very well in very specific kind of decks. Deals with milling yourself, milling your opponents, getting land into graves, any kind of filtering systems. Titania, lots of cool stuff to do with this guy. Sandstone Oracle, 7 for a 4/4 flyer. Whenever it's the battlefield, you choose an opponent and your hand becomes the number of cards in their hand, or rather you draw cards to match them. This seems really good as a top end card for decks that have very little card draw, so white, red decks that don't have that much card draw going on. This kind of card is a great evasive creature to throw down later in the game when your hand's empty. Think about if you're running aggro goblins, for example, have this card. It really helps you get that late game hand refill, especially against more controlling decks. This art looks gorgeous. Which card is this? This is Dream Pillager, 7 for a 4/4 flyer. Dragon, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile many cards. Till end of turn, you may play non-land cards exiled this way. Initially seems like it would be really cool, but it doesn't have haste, and it's a very weak body for 7 mana that also has to do damage to a player for it to even exile, and you can't do it even if you can give him haste. You can't do it the first turn because you're going to dump all your mana into him and you won't be able to play. It's not that you can play them for free, it's that you may play them exile this way, which for their cost. All in all, seems interesting but not all that awesome. Dawnbreaker Reclaimer, 6 for a 5/5 flyer. At the beginning of your end step, choose a creature card in your opponent's graveyard. That player chooses one in your graveyard, and you can return those cards to the battlefield under your owner's control. Seems a really good political card. I mean, this is essentially a 5/5 flyer for 6 that also reanimates something in your graveyard, and your opponent gets something in your graveyard. Great way to build alliances. Hey, you want to be my buddy? We can reanimate both of our creatures for a very reasonable cost, and it's an awesome angel. Fantastic. Seriously, some of the stuff they're coming up with for this commander set, I'm a huge fan of. Ezuri's Predation, 5 for a 3 green sorcery. For each creature your opponents control, all of them, you get a 4/4 green beast, and then each one of the beasts fights a different one of those creatures. What's interesting about this card is the wording. Does this mean that you can assign the beasts to fight each of the creatures? It's not quite clear how you assign it, but regardless, if there's 10 creatures on the field, you get 10 4/4s. Even if half of them die in the fights, you're still left with quite a few guys for 8 mana. Seems really good, especially if you know there's going to be creature heavy strategies in your meta. Seems like a good way to abuse that. Awaken the Sky Tyrant's kind of boring, to be honest. Whenever a source opponent's control deals damage, sacrifices, you get a 5/5 flyer. So 4 for a 5/5 at best. Doesn't seem all that awesome, even if the flavor is pretty interesting. Seal the Guild Pack, 5 for an artifact. Enters the battlefield, you choose 2 colors, and each spell you cast with those colors costs 1 colorless less for each of the chosen. Seems really good for 3 to 5 color decks, because the fact that you can give 2 off of multicolor spells seems really really good. Obviously, it's one of those cards that is reeks of flavor and playability. Will be more of it'll be for a very specific kind of deck, I would think. Deadly Tempest, it's a big wrath, destroys all creatures, and they lose life. Great against creature-heavy token strategies. Dread Summons, this card, it's a mill mechanic, but it works really well if, for example, you're playing someone like Sidisi, where by milling, you have mostly creatures in your deck, you get the most of the creatures, but it's also an equalizing effect. Command Beacon, the Tower of Sauron, pretty much. Sacrifice it to, well, it's a colorless, and then you sack it to put your commander card into your hand from your command zone. This is great, especially if your commander costs a lot of mana over time. Then you get it back in your hand, and you can cast it for its normal cost. Seems really good, especially for a commander that dies a lot. Shoe into any deck, definitely an option. Verdant Confluence is not as good as the red one we saw yesterday, but it's pretty good still. 2/1 counters on a creature, return target permanent card, so it's up to 3 Eternal Witness effects, or search your deck for a land. So it's ramp plus regrowth plus 2 counters for 6 mana. You get to do any combinations. Seems really good in Commander, of course. Bastion Protector is super sweet. I just love the design on this. It's a 3/3 for 3 human soldier that command creatures you control have 2/2 and indestructible. This is for your own Voltron or your own commander, aggressive commander, but also if you mind control your opponent's commanders, you can potentially have multiple indestructible commanders. How awesome is that? Mirror Match is very expensive, but I like how it's mirror reflection for combat. So if a guy is going to try to beat you down, you're in good shape, but it's 6 mana still, no matter how interesting the mechanics, 6 mana seems a lot. Mizzix's Mastery, super awesome use of Overload, affecting graveyards. You exile a target card as instant sorcery in your graveyard to recast it for free, and you can do it for 8 mana to get all your instants and sorceries from your graveyard. That seems insane for Izzet decks. So, wow. Smoking. Last up, we got Magus of the Wheel. Yes, Wheel of Fortune is on a creature. It's delayed because he doesn't have haste, but if you can give him haste, there you go. And regardless, he's a great card if once he's sitting in play for a couple turns. Just being able to wheel on threat seems great. Shove him into Nekusar, shove him into any kind of aggressive deck that needs to refill their hands. Seems very awesome. Wheel on a creature. Sweet. So I'm loving the commander stuff we're seeing today. What do you guys think about all the cards? Definitely let me know. Put your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, then please tap the like button. If you're new to the channel, check in and subscribe. As always, Roxybox90 signing out. I'll see you guys next time.